What's up, everybody? Heat Ratio Live. Tony Jigsaw Cotillo. Mikey Goog's back in the house. Been a while, Mike. We're going to talk about all kinds of things tonight. Philadelphia sports topics, little normal topics, things that annoy us here and there like we always do. And we're getting a little music, little 28th anniversary release date today for our boys, the Hits from the Bong Boys. So we'll get to that a little later. But first of all, Googs, it's been like 2 months since we've been live. Last week, Farzetta, by the way, says, yo, thanks for going on vacation. Leave your boy hanging solo last week. But
yeah, sorry about that, Mark.
Yeah, you want to say what's up? But Mike, what's going on, buddy?
Well, just digging down and just trying to get some R&R time in. A little vacation time, a little time away from everything. To reflect on the amazing shape of the Philadelphia sports scene. All the wonderful things that we have to look forward to.
That's going to be right where we go with that. The wonderful thing we got to look forward to, because, before I get into my quirky segments like we always do, is because last week you missed a good one.
I heard.
That's how you missed a really good one.
Yeah,
and you missed the CVS stories because I was asking a question of why does the CVS stores decide now? Let me phrase it this way first, Mike. Do you know what the busiest aisle is in some CVS stores?
Do you know the answer to this question?
Yes, absolutely. The busiest aisle, right? If it's in an aisle, it's not in an aisle at every store, but the busiest aisle is a prescription aisle, right? It's where you're lining up to get your prescriptions. Now, my question to everybody was, from a marketing standpoint, you do some marketing work, Mike. I do some marketing work.
Okay.
So as a marketing guy, why would you decide to put the sexual intimate products down the same aisle of the prescriptions? Now, listen, I get what everybody's busy, but my point was, I'm in line and I'm awkward because I'm listening to the kid behind me asking mommy, what's a Magnum? And I'm just trying to get my blood pressure medicine. Right? So at the end of the day, I just think piss poor marketing from the standpoint of CVS, right? That was the point. But this week, before we get to the court, go ahead. What's up?
I got something to add to that.
Yeah.
I might enlighten you here a little bit on this.
Okay.
So I did, as a youth, I spent some time in retail. Okay. And we used to have to put these things together called planograms. Okay. So I worked in retail for a few years. So what a planogram is, it's a diagram that's sent down by the corporate office. And it basically tells you how to align the shelf and what to put on the shelf. Okay. So, the stuff that you see in retail stores, it's not just placed there randomly. It's all been thought out and calculated based upon the gross profit of the item. So what they do is they have you put the really high gross profit or gross margin, they would say high GM items next to high trafficked areas. So you ever notice when you're checking out at the register, you go through Acme, you're going through Pathmark, wherever the hell you go, okay? You go through the lines and you see all the magazines, you see the candy, the gum, you see the shit that the kids grab. Let me have this, the toys, the dumb shit, right? All right. That's all placed there for a reason. Why? Because it's sky-high profit. Now, I'm going to imagine, okay, outside of the marketing and outside of the point that you brought up, which is discretion, those are discretion-based products. They shouldn't be standing there. And especially, you know what? Let me get into this a little bit more, because the area where you pick up your prescription is always like, 3 inches, and they got 200 people jammed into this small little area. And they have 2 little chairs that you always see some people waiting. They can't, some elderly people that perhaps maybe they have some trouble and they want to sit down or whatever. But the waiting area and the whole logistic flow of that is complete crap. It's not even well thought out. Because if it was, they would give you more room. But I would suspect that the reason why that they put those products there is because they're sky high in profit, and they want a lot of people to look at them and grab them. But it kind of defeats the purpose, because those are the kind of products that you want to grab without anybody seeing what you're doing.
Right. The discreet factor of it, right? And listen. So
you're right.
Again,
I'm sure that's why they do it, but I agree with you. It's piss poor marketing. It's piss poor play. They should have thought that one out better.
You have to. You got to do better, man. And I know they're all not the same way, but you got to do better, right? You got to do better. But before we get on to the quirkiness again, because I got another, like it's the Jigsaw Diaries are alive and well. Okay, the Jigsaw Diaries are alive.
I can see that.
Yeah, so let's talk Philadelphia sports real fast, because
sure,
this was just a generalization, right? Just What the hell's happened to us
We
over the
don't do
last
that.
3 years?
We don't do that here. We don't generalize.
No, never. We're not biased. We don't generalize. But what the hell happened in 3 years? And what I mean by that is, we had every single thing going for us. We were on this show. We had a franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz. We finally had a goalie in Carter Hart. We just signed Bryce Harper to a 13-year deal, right? Unbelievable. We got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. We're going to rule the world in Philadelphia. Now, all of a sudden this year, we got question marks to the Sixers. Kick Ben Simmons the hell out of here, right? Wentz is gone because he's a mental midget and can't play in this town, right? And we don't even know if Carter Hart is the guy we thought he was going to be. And right now the Phillies are in, kind of mired in mediocrity. I mean, yeah, they have a chance to win the NL East, but right now it's just not working out the way we thought it was going to be. So did you think we'd ever get to this point 3 years ago?
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, we were on a high streak, right? And I mean, there was so much potential. When you think about the potential of all the teams, it was all there. And we all felt pretty good to be in the Philadelphia sports area, right? We felt really good because everybody was clicking. I wouldn't say on every cylinder, but a lot of cylinders. And there was a lot to look forward to. And then it just seemed like all of a sudden, everything just kind of crashed again. And you know me. I mean, I'm trying not to be cynical. I'm trying not to be, the negative sports fan. But it's really, really difficult because when you look at each team and you look at all of the issues that are surrounding them, you just scratch your head. Like, how could you explain Carter Hart? How could you explain the incident with Ben Simmons? How could you explain Pederson being regarded as one of the top 5 coaches to play for based on his new breed of emotional intelligence and analytics and all these words that we've been fed is the new way the NFL is going to be. And Pederson's there. He wins a Super Bowl without Carson Wentz because he wasn't healthy, but Carson had that amazing year. So we all jumped on thinking that Carson was going to, just basically pick up where Nick Foles left off. I mean, how high were all of our hopes across the board for all teams? I mean, when we signed Bryce Harper, I felt like it was, when we signed Cliff Lee or, when we signed, who's that? Hunter Pence. Remember all the hype when we signed Hunter Pence? We were just like, everybody was like, damn, we're the Yankees. We just write checks now. And we buy talent and we already have this nucleus. It just felt really good to be a sports fan. And then it all just fell apart. I mean, can we trace it back to anything? No, because each one of these challenges with each team have individual incidents that are tied to them. So, and they're all different and they're all as equally as bizarre as the next one. So it's really hard, but it you can see why. And during times like these, with the pandemic and with everybody really wanting to hold on to something, it's very hard to be cynical and to be a positive Philadelphia sports fan with all of this going on. It really is. And the NBA playoffs and that thing with Simmons, that was the icing on the cake, man. You can't do that. You can't do that in Philadelphia. You just can't. And he did, and he just doesn't care. No. He doesn't care. I said, how long have I been trashing this guy? Not trashing him, but I just saw through this dude. He cares more about Instagram, man. He cares more about everything else that he cares about the profession that he's in. And I know, bro, I never shot a basketball professionally, not even semi-professionally. As a matter of fact, nobody picked me to be on their basketball team. I was the worst coordinated person ever. I don't know what it's like to play any kind of organized sports. I was the absolute worst athlete and still am. Okay. This is that for a disclaimer. So I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, but what I do know is the city of Philadelphia. And I just feel like that, for a max guy like that, okay, to just sort of give up on the team, just to show all this, this lackadaisical attitude and not care. Because if he cared, man, he'd be in the gym and he'd fix his free throw. He just doesn't want to go to the line because he's afraid he's going to miss a free throw, dude. I feel bad for the guy in a way. I mean, he just isn't there, man. It's easy to throw bombs at the guy, but something is not right upstairs.
It's definitely mental.
It has to be.
It's definitely mental because we know the physical ability he already has, right? We already know that he wouldn't be where he's at right now,
right?
If that wasn't the case, right? But what I will say though is, Mike, you said it. I mean, we've been on this the entire time. This is nothing new. I'm not going to get crazy about it because it's what I already knew. Like, Ben Simmons is not a Philadelphia guy. He's not made for this town, right? He is a LA kind of guy. I've been saying it for years, right? That's what he is. He wants to go. He wants to relax. And then, listen, you do whatever you want with your personal life, right? It is what it is. But when you're sitting there and you're getting ready for an elimination game, and 10 minutes before the game, you're sliding them girls' DMs on Twitter and on Instagram, setting up your night. Well, where's your mindset, bro? Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm just calling that out because at the end of the day, yes, we're all human beings. I understand that. But the job at hand that you're getting paid for is go win a basketball game. You could do all that extracurricular stuff later. 10 minutes for a game? So that right there, there's your mindset. Say what you want, but there's your mindset. And that's a problem.
It's a good point. It's a solid point. And when you look at the ones that are good, obviously Ben Simmons says a lot about his game that makes him very attractive, right? But when you look at the ones that are great, the ones that win championships are the ones that are just persistent. They don't leave the gym. They take everything first. The game is first. Their work is first. You know, and I guess when you have a bunch of players that are like, you know, like, and we've talked about this before, but that have been at the top of their game since, you know, grade school, middle school, or whatever, and have been the best players in high school. They've been the best players on their college teams, and you get together and it's the best of the best. Well, what separates the best from the best? The ones that win the championships, the ones that go far, the ones that put their team on their backs, for lack of a better phrase, they just seem to do a lot of the extra stuff consistently, and he doesn't do any of that. And, you know, the rumors, who knows if we're true, because, you know, usually when something goes bad, these stories or these rumors just seem to pop out of anywhere. So trust me, I believe this stuff with a grain of salt, but the rumors are that he's uncoachable, that he doesn't work. I mean, dude, come on, man. I mean, when you see the guy shoot a free throw, you know he's not practicing. You know he isn't, because it just doesn't look like that he is. It just looks like I don't think that he wants to be in that situation, but he just avoids. He will not get into confrontation and go to the line, which is his strong suit, because he can't hit an outside shot. So if you don't do that and you don't shoot, why is this guy a max? What is he even? It's just so bizarre, man. You could just talk yourself into the crazy house by trying to diagnose this. You know, you want to go further? Is the process cursed? Tanking all them games? Is this karma? You want to go there? It might be. It seems like it really, really is, because, you know, between the whole Jason Tatum thing and Danny Ainge and getting fleeced for Fultz and now, you know, Simmons with this meltdown. I mean, I get it. We're probably maybe a couple players away, but dude, how long is the process going to go on? How much can the fans process?
Wow.
How about that? How much have we processed? All those horrible seasons of losing constantly?
We've been through a lot, man.
I don't know.
What's up, Al? Al checking in. What's up, buddy? How you doing? I know Al feels strong on his feelings as well.
Maybe Al has the answer.
It's been tough, man. We're sitting here and we're getting to watch the Milwaukee Bucks, who I still feel are an inferior team compared to what we had. And we're watching them right now on the brinks of, you know, closing out the Suns, man. Like, yeah. It's tough, man. It's really tough. You brought up a good point, Mike. It's like, you know, when do we just say enough is enough? When did we finally say, I just can't do this anymore? Like, you see that so many times, whether it be through, you know, your employment, whether it be through life, whether it be extracurricular activity, you give all you can, man. You go all in, throw all the cards in. And if you keep getting smacked away time after time after time after time, finally just go, I'm done. I'm ass out. Like, I've had enough. Right. So I think sometimes, you know, that's what happens. And the fans feel the same way. You know, you can only keep the interest level in a fan base for so long, you know, in a sense, especially in Philadelphia. We are obviously misunderstood. I'll say it 100 times. I can't believe I was on a show again a couple weeks ago and they brought up the Santa Claus thing. I wanted to hang up. Like, seriously, I just wanted to hang up.
It's a new story.
But yeah, get over it now. Get over it. It's old. Okay, nobody. How about we talk about, you know, what's going on like in Washington the other night? We got to shut the stadium down because there's people shooting outside of the stadium. How about we talk about San Diego and LA, who has fights in the 600 level every single day? People get stabbed and shanked. Nobody's talking about that because it's not good press.
Never.
right?
It's too easy to kick
right.
Philadelphia. Yeah,
Exactly. It's not good press. It's not good press. Nick checking it says, Nicky Nuts, Simmons needs to go. Nicky Nuts, Nicky Nuts, the Flyers made a good trade, but I won't even talk about that. I know nothing about who Ryan Ellis is, but I know that's a good trade because I know my man Nicky Nuts is all over Flyer Nice. Trevor checking in. Trevor was getting pictures at Fenway Park, man.
Oh, no kidding.
We need to live Trevor's life a little bit, man.
I think that's a good idea.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we got to go. But let me ask you this. Do you really think, Mike, and again, listen, here's what I will say. Me, Googs, I don't say we're an expert analyst, NBA insider.
I hope nobody says that about me.
No, we're not, right? So we're just feeding off what other people write and what other people talk about, right? But here's the question. Do you really think there's a chance for Dane time in Philly? Do you really think there's this? Because I honestly think there is. I think this is one of those deals where we never thought we'd get Terrell Owens. And we did. And I remember, Mike, we were sitting there together listening to it when it got announced. We couldn't believe it, right? Couldn't believe it. So I think that right now, I think this could really happen. And let me ask you this, Mike. Number one, do you think it could happen? Number two, if it does happen, with the amount of luster that this guy's going to bring, do you think it's going to have the same or a bigger effect than when T.O. came here? Or do you think it'll be still T.O. probably the best all-season acquisition ever in this town?
Well, again, the cynical Mike will come out, and I'll say that because we want it to happen so bad, the universe is going to find a way to jam us up, and it's not going to happen. He'll go sign with the Knicks or something. Now, I'm sure everybody's thinking that way. I didn't think we would get T.O. I didn't think we'd get Ricky Waters back in the day.
Wow, that's
Ricky Waters signing to me was so big because I remember thinking, nobody came to the Eagles. Nobody wanted to play at the Vet because they didn't want to blow their knees out because the turf was like running on, razors and hot coals. So nobody wanted to do that. We never got any type of free agents to come to Philly. We would lose free agents all the time. So I remember when Ricky Waters came, I was like super, super excited for that. And then when T.O. came, obviously we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe when T.O. came, and we were super pumped up. And yeah, man, that was a moment that you and I got to share together. We were freaking out when that happened. Yep. Do I think it could be that big? Probably not. And the reason why is because, this is a football town. I just think a football free agent would just carry more weight than the Sixers. All right. That's what I think personally, but it would be big. I mean, it would be big. I mean, Bryce Harper probably should have been bigger than T.O., and it was big, but it wasn't as big as T.O. T.O. was T.O., and that was just the end of it. And maybe it has more luster on it because he took us to, we rode him to the Super Bowl. Maybe there's that whole thing there. But I think it'll be very big. Obviously people will be pretty fired up, and it'll completely clear any of the, the old process, any of the mistakes that were made, anything. People will just forget about all that because, now you have Lillard, and that really opens up a lot of possibilities, And I just read a report, I was reading it yesterday, saying that he wants to be traded to the Sixers and either to the Sixers or to the Knicks. So, hey man, a 50-50 shot to get him is a lot bigger than what I had thought. If you would have asked me a couple of weeks ago when they were talking about, who's that other? No, he's not a stiff, but McCollum. He's not CJ McCollum. Yeah, he's not a stiff. But I wanted Lillard obviously more than him. And I would take CJ McCollum. Well, I think you would, and I would, and the majority of the Philadelphia sports fans would probably take a bottle of water for Ben Simmons at this point because we're so frustrated with him. But
that's what it is. It's frustration.
It's just frustration.
Right? It is. It's so much frustration.
And why is he a mental project? What's up with the projects? Like, why do we always have to get Fultz is a project, yo? Danny Watkins is big, but he's a project. Why? Who drafts projects? Sean Andrews. He's a project. You're drafting high players that are high up in the first round, and they're projects. Why are they projects? Why do we take the projects? And if we've ever had a successful project, how about that for a topic? What project have we drafted that we turned into what they were supposed to be? Who? The projects never work out.
No. No, they don't. They don't work out. They
Why
don't.
do
And
we have to do it? I mean, if we were a team that, let's say, for instance, there's certain teams that are great at certain things. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers are amazing at drafting wide receivers that are deep in the draft because they find value. Whatever data model that they're using proves that they get this great value of wide receivers. They're a wide receiver factory. They're great. Why are we the project factory? We're the project factory, and the projects never turn out to what they're supposed to be. So what are we doing wasting the time?
it's all the time, man. It is. It's so nauseating. It is. It's just like every time, like, come on, man. Like,
Come on,
I don't
man.
understand. Like, don't they have interviews with these cats? Like before? Like, I'm not understanding. Like, and you know what it is, though, Mike? It's a complete disconnect. It's a complete disconnect. You're disconnected from the city, that you manage a team in. That's what it is. You already know the media platform that you possess. You already know the bias that you possess when it comes to a fan base. You have to understand. You need a guy that can deal with that.
That's a great point.
Right? I mean, you got another. You mentioned Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard crying on the sideline because he can't figure out a play. Like, no disrespect, man, but come on. Like, are we like this isn't pee-wee football? Like, what? Where? Why us? Why us?
Why us? It's great. That's great. We should get a t-shirt. Why us? But so you brought up an interesting point. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that they don't look at maybe a holistic approach to their models? Because maybe when they're looking at the models, they're like, damn, this guy on paper, he's going to be great. But maybe that other side says, this is a Philly town, man. We've seen him melt down. He's not all there. The reporters and the media will eat him up. Maybe it's not a good idea that he plays here. Do you think that they take those things under consideration? Because based on what you said, they don't. And based on what their actions look like, the people that they've drafted, it doesn't seem like they do.
Sure seems like they don't. I'm sure they just do strictly town evaluation. But, for years, though, I mean, Andy Reid in this town and Joe Banner, all we heard was high character guys, right? We want high character guys. That was it. I mean, seriously, Chip Kelly. Okay, I'm going to put a Chip Kelly reference. Didn't he say what scheme trumps talent or some or culture trumps scheme, or I forget
something like that. But scheme was involved.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was character, but I think he said scheme.
So because it was when he traded Shady for that stiff Kiko Alonso, and everybody was like, "Wait a minute, what? Are you kidding me? He was a Hall of Fame running back for Kiko Alonso."
Right? There were some unsubstantiated other reports about Shady. Who knows if they're true or not? But
yes.
I mean, the Eagles could have leaked that crap. We don't know.
Look,
you don't know.
Joe, he gets it. Joe, listen, I said this last week, and I'll say it again. And Nick, it's a good point because two different kind of players, right? You watch Ben Simmons, and again, you do whatever you want, your extracurricular activities and your personal life. I get it. But a week afterwards, he's out there hugged up and kissing some girl in Wimbledon, right? Joel Embiid is still got his head down, still hurt by why they lost, because he gets it. He feels it, right? He lives it because he knows I am the guy. I'm the franchise. They're looking at me, man. They're looking at me. So that's the biggest difference. I don't want to talk about Ben Simmons no more, but doing it enough. The dude's getting too much airplay for me for the wrong reasons right now, and I just had it. Let's move on. We'll figure out what happens next year. But one thing's for sure, he is not going to be in the Sixers uniform. I can tell you that right now. There's no way. But Mike, you said one thing I want to ask you about. It's actually one of our topics tonight. But you talked about when we were talking about the era of Philly sports, the state of it right now as it was 3 years ago. But could you actually say that, because me and you were both not on the Doug Pederson train. Well, we always were not on that train. Listen, I tipped my hat when he won. Obviously, how do you not? But we went on a train. But can the biggest positive about this team moving forward be the removal of Doug and Carson together? Because I felt like that was just a poisoned relationship. And just that the locker room was just completely distraught by these two and what was going on. So do you think that could be actually the biggest positive moving forward for the Eagles?
I think that they didn't really have a choice. And in order to get everybody sort of back on board and clean the slate, Lurie and everybody in the front office wanted to move on. So I think we have to look at it as a positive. I think we have to look at it as a positive But I would be pretty surprised if there were that many Pederson fans left over. I just think everybody sort of kicked Pederson on the way out the door. It's so funny because after he won the Super Bowl, he was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But before that, he was a complete dope. Everybody thought he was a dope. They crushed Pederson constantly, me included. So I wasn't a big Pederson fan. But then when he had success and he won, we were all thinking, maybe this new way of emotional intelligence and listening to the analytics guys and going forward constantly on fourth down and, just being more of a humanist, a person type of coach and manager, because that's what he was. He was a player's coach. He built a lot of one-on-one relationships, and he got more out of their players by trusting them to do their jobs and not just, hammering them like Bill Belichick and treating them like children. So there was something to say for that. And that new coaching wave, a lot of it was modeled after Pederson. So remember, everybody was on Pederson. After he had won the Super Bowl, everybody wanted to play for Pederson. Remember, some of the players from the Patriots were even saying, it looks like a fun team to play for. We're not constantly worried about our jobs or being punished for when we make mistakes. Everybody wanted to play with Pederson.
Oh, yeah.
Then, man, it only took 2 years or a season and a half, and then that was it. Everybody sort of just turned their back on him and was finished with him, including me, because of some of the boneheaded stuff that he did. And then there was all those reports. Again, who knows what to believe, but all those reports coming out saying that he was micromanaged in every aspect of the game. Everything that he did, he was called up to Howie Roseman's office, and Howie Roseman said, it was a 2nd and 3. Why did you call a cross pass when you should have ran the ball? Analytics said we should have ran the ball. We have a 66% chance of converting that into a first. Those were the reports that came out that saying that he was scrutinized and he couldn't do anything, and he was just a proxy. So is it positive that he's not there? Or did they just get another yes man because nobody was even considering hiring Sirianni and they brought him in? And did they just have another yes man? Because it clearly looks like, and, give a little shout out to Coach Dave, who had said that he thought Lurie was meddling in. And yeah, exactly. Yeah. That you don't even have to say anything right there. I mean, that's just a sad state of affairs.
No, we could dude, for years we could just go right back to this picture.
Yeah, anytime you just have a question about anything, or just show that. Or show Press Taylor, the other genius that was in the up in the Eagles front. Yeah, there he goes, my man. I wonder what he's doing now. I'm sure he has a job somewhere in the NFL.
He probably does. He does. He has a job somewhere. He's the magnet guy for the whiteboard. He changes the magnets around every day.
He's great, this guy. Look at that guy. Anyway, so look, I don't know. I just think that it's just going to be more of the same, and they got a less, yeah, exactly, Andre. They got a less expensive yes man. Now, look, his attitude's been great. Everybody says it's great. There's a lot of positivity about him. So, I mean, can the biggest positives be removed for Carson Wentz for sure? And there's still a lot of people that still defend Wentz up until this day. But it's a clean slate. And I think that because of their schedule and because they have a lot of good young players, I think that there's a possibility that they could do okay this year. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to go and win 10 games or 11 games, but I think they could be better than what we initially thought, or at least what we initially think that they could do. They could surprise us. A lot of things can happen right now. You're starting completely down at the bottom with a good little foundation and some good young players that might be eager to make a play or two. So anything can happen. But I would say yes, Tony. I would say it's definitely positive going forward, and it's something to look forward to. You're not dealing with the same old stuff. Because if it was Pederson and if Wentz was still there, it would be pretty bad. I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, it was pretty poisonous there for a while, man. You could definitely tell, when a locker room is distraught, when you lose a locker room. We already knew that, right? We've seen it with Andy Reid. We've seen it with Chip Kelly. We've seen it with Doug Pederson. Andre says a side-by-side pick looks like a bad Jeopardy question. That pick will live in infamy, Andre. It really will. It will. But listen, I just want to explain to everybody too. Let's just everybody relax, because Carson Wentz is going to be good. Okay. So for all the people out there that think, oh, dude sucks, he's going to go Indiana, he's going to be good. You're going to show, listen, you're going to put on NFL Tonight, and you're going to see Carson Wentz throwing for 3 touchdowns, 330 yards, jumping up and down, Colts winning, right? They got a good team. But you have to remember, it wasn't going to happen here. It ran its course. So you have to always remember that, like Ben Simmons, right? Not to get back, but if you trade, look, he's going to. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what they do after here. They weren't going to do it here. So everybody has to remember that. And I think if you remember that, then you can kind of temper your expectations. You know what I mean?
Good advice, but we won't do that. We all know we won't, but that's good advice. And we all know what's destined to happen with Carson Wentz. I've seen the movie before. You know, it was starring Patrick Chung and Eric Rowe. I've seen that movie before. I know where it's going to go. I'm not saying he's going to go to the Super Bowl, but he's going to have success, and it's going to upset a lot of people because he's got a coach that he was comfortable with. You know, and I honestly, I'm very curious to see if the guy stays healthy, what would have been possible if, if he remained under Frank Reich. I guess we'll get some questions answered. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. We really want Carson to play more than 75% of the snaps because you get the draft pick. It is just business, but it might be a little bit more than that. Might be a little bit more than that for people because you got so many people that were divided about Wentz. Like the Carson Wentz defenders, there were so many of them. And I like to group those into the Ben Simmons defenders.
Yes, please do that.
They're all the same people to me. They're the participation trophies. That's okay. You get the trophy. You get $100 million, but don't do your job. I don't know. My generation doesn't come from that. My generation does the job. We get paid. And if we do really, really well, we get paid really, really well. That's it. That's the way it is. But, there's obviously a difference of opinion and things have changed, and that's okay. I'm receptive to that. But I don't think in Philadelphia, regardless of your age or whatever generation you come from, I just don't think it's a city that accepts mediocrity, And if it's a city that wants an overachiever. They love, they love the middle of the road guy that just really overachieves and busts his butt. They love the Aaron Rollins when they run in the walls and smash their face. Everybody, that's what Philly is. And it doesn't matter how many people come through the city. It's always the same thing. But laziness, acting like you don't care, Bobby Abreu style, even though he produced, he just had that, I don't care. I'm going to swing the bat. No, get up the bat. I don't care. That's never going to go over well here, man. And the thing is with Simmons and with some of these guys, you see them do this stuff in college and you just think I'm going to draft them and they're going to be on a professional team and they're going to do something different. Never really understood that. I never really understood that.
Andre says he'd love to see the stat where a number of pro players that leave Philly sports go on to win a chip within 2 to 5 years of leaving the home franchise. You know what? We got to look at that up because I'm sure I'm sure there's a few. There's definitely a few, man. More than a few.
More than I think we want to see, Andre. More
probably
because it's going to confirm what we all know anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, all I know is it's going to happen. It is what it is. Let's just worry about what we're doing here. And it's almost like when I talk to people about podcasting, I talk to people about live streaming, and I talk to people about networks, and everybody's like, oh, these people doing this over here, and these people. Listen, control what you can control, right? I tell people all the time, worry about what you're doing. Stop worrying about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Stick to what you're doing. Master your domain, okay, and move forward. And don't worry about that because there's a lot of great content creators out there. Everybody's doing something different. It's all good. Who cares? Do your thing. That's all you got to worry about. But let me talk about this, Mike. As last week, it's kind of mid-show here, which is a good segue. I got a couple of reads coming in a couple of weeks from a couple of sponsors. I'll get them not tonight, but next couple episodes. But last week was talking about CVS, and tonight I want to talk about ice and drinks. And it's a very vague topic. And I got a couple quirky things here. And it's something that really fuels me a little bit. Okay. So I go to the Phillies game the other night. Now I get it. COVID. I get it. No COVID. They don't want to, the fountain drinks no more with the lids and the straws. Fine. I get all that. Not a problem.
Do you get it?
So what's that?
You get that?
Yeah.
I don't get
I'm
that.
not saying what I'm saying is I'm not saying I get the mindset. I'm not saying I like it. I just know that that's the way the world's going with all these things, right? So it's not, for me, for obvious reasons, I kind of expect it. My point is, you go up and they haven't changed the price, which, whatever, you're at the ballpark, you got to expect it, right? But now I'm getting a 20-ounce soda that's been in the fridge. It's 125 degrees out, okay? The thing's hot in 5 minutes. So, what I'm asking for is can't get a cup of ice? Like, if you don't want to do the fountain drinks, like, you can't have a cup of ice and say, okay, we're not pouring the fountain drinks, but how about you get a cup of ice with the bottle of soda? Is that so hard? Is that a problem? So again, Mike, marketing. Like, I don't get the logic. It's going to be friggin' piss warm in 5 minutes. So now I'm drinking a piss warm Coke that sucks ass. Okay, because you can't give me a cup with ice in it. I don't get it.
What's worse than warm soda? Warm beer?
Oh, warm beer is the worst.
Who drinks a warm soda?
It's the worst.
Psychopaths would do that.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
A warm soda. No one does that. But let me ask you this. You said you get it. The disconnect for me is, why does a fountain soda contribute to the transmission of COVID-19? Now, you explain that to me, because that I don't understand. Go ahead.
Yes,
what the hell are you talking about? What the hell are we doing?
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, all you're doing is putting the thing under the machine, spitting out the soda, and maybe because your hand's touching a lid.
Okay, so everybody has gloves on today, right?
Right.
Everybody. Okay. So, you go anywhere, they're wearing gloves, they're wearing masks, even when there's no COVID, before COVID, pre-pandemic, food servers wore gloves.
Yes.
You have gloves on. So now, wearing gloves and giving out a fountain soda can increases the likelihood of transmitting COVID-19. Not the 20 million people that are in the stands all breathing and coughing shit all over each other. It's the fountain soda. Now, I don't understand any of that. I know this is a serious thing. I don't take the pandemic lightly. Believe me, my family thinks I'm crazy because I take some serious precautions when it comes to this. But I draw the line when it comes to morons and idiots making rules that don't help or benefit anyone. You know what that is? That's an excuse. They probably figured out that, if we don't give ice out, we'll make another $55,000 per game. And, you times that by 80 home games, and we just put another $3 million into the bottom line. Trust me, man, everybody uses COVID as an opportunity. I'm not saying that they did that or they didn't do it, but that rule doesn't make any sense. And the worst part about it is you and everybody else gets stuck with a warm soda.
Oh, yes. Yes, but here you go. Here's one step further, and you're gonna like this, because
I'm sure
I need some help here, Mike. This is what So, have you ever gone to a Philadelphia Union game?
Years ago, yeah.
Okay.
I've been to a few of them. Yep. So
Union, listen, I not but love for the Union. Love going to Union games. Listen, I work for a station, Fox Sports Gamer, that covers the Union exclusively. Love the Union.
Yeah, they're fun events.
But
here we go.
Have you ever noticed what they do with the sodas?
No, but I'm very curious.
They take the cap off and they don't give it to you.
Oh, I think they do that at the Eagles games too. They stopped doing that for a while. They don't give the caps out.
So here's a question, okay? Because this is the dumb shit that Jigsaw thinks about, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I finally asked the lady the other day when I went to the Union. I said, "Let me ask something." I'm like, "Why don't you give the caps out?" Because of we don't want them to act as a legal object or a throwing device. Okay, hold on for a second. You want to talk about dumb shit? Have you ever tried to throw a plastic bottle cap?
No.
Not really. Let me tell you something. If you could throw that 20 feet, man, I will bow down to your ass. That thing weighs about an ounce. It's going nowhere. Who are you endangering with a plastic 20-ounce bottle cap? Like, are you reaching out for the 200 level to third base? Like, we're not talking about batteries like we threw with J.D. Drew. We're talking about a soda cap, Mike. Who the hell is throwing a soda cap 50 feet?
That's where I was going to go. I was going to reference the J.D. Drew incident, because they stopped giving caps out years ago because they felt that, the Philadelphia fans would just launch it onto the field, and throw it at players and stuff like that. And let's be honest. Whatever the Union is doing, they're probably just taking their cues off of how the Link or, how Citizens Bank follows suit, because I'd imagine that the operations teams for these arenas, they all talk to each other. They probably even share some responsibilities, whatever. They probably just took the rules and they just put them over there. Okay, those soccer fans get a little rowdy. You know that area, Sons of Ben, or the Ben dudes that
Oh
go
yeah, Sons of Ben,
bonkers.
man.
They get a little crazy over there, and the soccer games overseas are deadly. I mean, that's 20 times worse than an Eagles or an NFL game. So
yes.
who knows if they're just trying to take precautions? And you know what? Let's go a step further. Maybe their insurance company said, if you remove any projectiles, we'll cut your rate because we have a better chance of maybe somebody slipping on one of those things, or, hitting a player or something like that. Okay. So who knows? Maybe not. I mean, maybe that's a little bit far fetched, but I'm sure they're taking their cues off of whatever the link did. And they stopped doing that because, let's be honest, dude, we're animals. We do that shit. We invented it. We do that. If anything's going to come out of a bottle cap turned into some sort of a melee weapon, it'll be a Philadelphia fan figures that out on how to do it.
But what I'm saying is, you can't throw them, Mike. Like, honestly, they go like 4 feet. So, like, we're not talking about a bottle. The hell with the cap. They're going to throw the bottle before they throw the damn cap. And now, what do you have again, Mike? Warm soda. Warm soda again.
It all comes back to that.
It all comes back, just like a Seinfeld episode. It all comes back to warm soda.
It all comes back to warm soda. If the cap is on the soda though, and it's 90 degrees, do you think it really prevents the soda from becoming warm, or you think it just cooks in the bottle?
Either way, I think you're screwed. Doesn't matter.
Some Philadelphia fan, I'm sure, found a MacGyver way to take that bottle cap and turn it into something. I'm sure of it.
MacGyver.
Yeah, MacGyver. Come on, dude. MacGyver took a pen and turned it into a nuclear weapon.
That's a great reference. I love it. But speaking, we're not going to talk about MacGyver here, but let's veer, because listen, just so everybody know, we talked about this, and going forward, I love this segment because what goes better with sports than music, right? So me and Mike have an infinite background when it comes to music, and we love talking about it. I know John likes talking about it. We John CD Shelf, right? Coach Dave gets involved. I know all the Heat Ratio fan would love sports and music. So figure let's start adding that more into the mix. And one thing I want to say before we get into this is, I just found out that for anybody saying that hip hop is dead, right? Do not know what they're talking about. I went and seen F9, and who's in there? Cardi B. Not saying I'm a big Cardi B fan, but that's a major motion picture. Major motion picture, and they have Cardi B in the movie. Hip hop, right? Again, Mega Stallion, again, swimsuit, first ever female rapper on a SI swimsuit edition. Right. So the hip hop world is large. OK, it is definitely not dead. Now, I'm not just saying we're going to talk about hip hop music on this show. We're going to talk about all types of music. Now, what I do want to do, Mike, is, and I know we've talked about we're obviously thought big, OK, with the Scott Stork thing. But what I do want to do is, I have reached out to some independent artists, whether they be rappers, whether they be rockers, whether they be country music stars, about getting them on this show. Adding some flavor to it, maybe even giving us a quick free base performance. Maybe what's their favorite sports legends growing up? What do they like, right? So we're gonna add that into the show. But for right now, what I will say is, today, July 20th, 1993, 28 years ago, Mike, Cypress Hill, Black Sunday is released. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is because, number one, like you said, this was you specifically said, what a great name for an album. Black Sunday, one of the best names for an album that I can ever think of, right? But again, it was their second studio album. But this album, again, the first one was obviously the self-titled. But I think one of I think we both agree before their time, but one of the most underrated rap groups ever that nobody really speaks about. And I'll tell you what, man. If you want to hear guys flow in harmony, if you want to hear a unique style, if you want to hear a distinct voice, you just have to listen to Be Real. I mean, the guy was, in my opinion, was a legend MC that nobody really talks about. But this album, Mike, I mean, I could throw it on today. I could throw it on yesterday. I could throw it on tomorrow, and I could still hit every single song, man. It was great.
Yeah, when you told me about that, I'm like, damn, we're getting old, number one. Number two, I also mentioned that I didn't really bite into Cypress Hill probably the way that I should have. They had that first album that I was talking to you about. That was the one that how I could just kill a man.
Here is
Um,
something. Yep.
that to me was one of the most iconic songs ever in hip hop, and still is. I mean, when you hear that beat come on, I mean, you know right away what that is. I
Killer
mean,
beat,
it's
man.
just a killer beat, and just everything. Their entire flow was great. You know, and it's a West Coast group, West Coast hip hop group that normally when you hear West Coast, you immediately think Dre, you think Snoop, you think NWA. That's where you go. You know, Ice Cube. That's just where you go, and you just kind of forget that Cypress Hill is a West Coast hip hop group. But they did a lot of stuff, man. I mean, there were, you know, I mean, back then in '93, I guess that was around. That was way before. When was Intergalactic Beastie Boys? Is that early 2000s?
No, that was I
Or was
think
that
that
late
was late
90s?
90s. Yeah,
Late
that was late
90s.
90s.
But remember now, you know, Insane in the Brain, they did a lot of stuff, man, that they really pulled in rock music into a lot of their reps. You know, like that one song Rockstar, and I don't know when that actually came out because that was in the Training Day soundtrack. You remember that? Remember that?
Yes, it wasn't. Yeah. Yes, it
You
wasn't
remember
a
the part
training
when
day.
they're walking up to the house when he's getting ready to get got, and they have that killer beat, and like all the gang members are there, and they're looking at Ethan Hawke, and that beat was great. I felt like that song really didn't go too far, and I, you know, again, I didn't even realize that was Cypress Hill until years later when I was trying to find out what song that was. But I just feel like they were early. You know, we talked about this earlier. They did a lot of stuff, and I just think that they were early. They were before their time. I think today they would be a hell of a lot bigger than what they were, and they should have been bigger. They were just, you know, they were just early to the game.
That well, you know what's funny is that you know how much they would kill it right now because number one,
Oh yeah,
you know, what's that?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Right. Well,
it would be better for them now if they were.
Oh,
if
yeah.
they were, yeah, right.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things was the legalization of marijuana, right? That's what they were always campaigning for anyway. Now it's legalized in most states. So it's crazy. And again, first Latino hip hop, you know, rap group on, you know, of their time, right? So that was actually 92, Mike. The debut album was early 92. How I Could Just Kill a Man. I mean, Hand on a Pump. So I mean, come on, man. That album was unbelievable. That was actually How I Could Just Kill a Man. Remember, that was in the Juice soundtrack as well.
Absolutely. That's probably how we first heard them. Yeah, we can go on about that movie forever.
Without a doubt. But it just there's so many groups. So look at Trevor is coming up. Yeah, Trevor must be. It's like the album dropped. That album dropped in 2000. I guess he's talking about the Intergalactic with Beastie Boys. Skull and Bones. 2000. What's Skull and Bones?
No, he's talking about the Rockstar. The Rockstar.
Rockstar. Okay.
Yeah, because it was on Training Day, and Training Day was 2001. So he's right. He's right.
So now Rick checking in 3 months from then. Versus was released, Pearl Jam, right? Which I know that's got to be a Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam. I'll tell you what, Eddie Vedder all day long, man. I'm not just a hip hop dude. I love Pearl Jam. I do.
What was bigger than that album? That was one of the most iconic albums of all time.
Oh, easily.
That was the beginning of a whole new genre of and it basically brought rock music back into the fold. Yep. Everything was hip hop then. And really, like, what new rock was released during that time? I mean, it was sort of like taking a back burner, and it was just the classic rock and some of the grunge that was out, but that defined the whole generation.
It did, and it's what we speak about all the time in the 90s, where I seen somebody today, one of my followers, we follow each other on Twitter, was talking about R&B. He had, you know, he was like, hey, R&B in the 90s, nothing better. Everything in the 90s, nothing better, man. I mean, honestly, like the 90s, Mike, like you said, you know, every single genre of music was kind of either reborn or born per se in the 90s. It's crazy when you think about it.
I heard Quentin Tarantino's interview on Joe Rogan. And Quentin Tarantino, obviously, he's a Gen Xer. And he had said the 90s were the 70s relived again. All the stuff that came out of the 90s.
Really?
It was like the 70s. Now, I don't know. We can't really relate to that. But think about the music and everything that happened during the 70s. some great music was released in the 70s. Music that I only recently discovered because I had my head buried in hip hop since the beginning of breakdance, and so I missed out on a lot of that stuff. And some stuff I completely ignored. Like I went through the 80s without really knowing some of the bands that I listen to quite frequently now, or at least the songs. So I feel like I discovered a whole new age of music in the 70s and 80s. But yeah, that's what Tarantino said. He said that the 90s had so much, and not just from movies, just from all over pop culture. I mean, not just from music, but movies and all kind of pop culture. So the 90s will still be and always be the greatest generation for hip hop music, because it was today, all the hip hop sounds the same. There's no, and I'm not knocking it, but it's just all the same. It's all the same music, right? It's like country. It's the same. Every track, country music is the same. I don't even get started on that. I can't stand that crap. But anyway, when in the 90s, it was different. You had Cypress Hill. Then you had Black Moon. And you had Lords of the Underground. Then you had Snoop. And then you had Dre. And then you had Biggie. Then you had Wu-Tang. It was all over the place. It was all different styles. It was everywhere, but I feel like today it sounds all the same.
It's crazy because, we talk about, for us, it's second nature, right? We just talked about the self-debuted, self-proclaimed album, Cypress Hill, with How I Could Just Kill a Man, released in 91.
Yeah.
It only reached number 31 in the U.S. top chart.
Why do you think that is?
I think, Mike, it was before its time.
Think about who was big then. You said 92, right?
Yes.
So what dropped in 92?
The Chronic.
The Chronic. Right, exactly. So what was bigger than the Chronic? Nothing. The Chronic was everything. It was this whole other style that nobody had ever heard of. It was the beginning of the G-Funk era.
Yeah, man.
And they were West Coast, so I'd be curious to see if it was the same label. Where it was Cypress on Interscope?
I don't. You know what? That's a good idea. I don't know if they were on Interscope,
because if they were probably busy promoting the Chronic and left none of the they didn't give them any of the marketing dollars to promote Black Sunday.
Yeah, you could be right. I got to look that up. I'm not sure if they what they were under, but here. Oh, look at Trevor saying he was doing a deep dive in the 80s and 90s when he drove down to Florida. And you talk about what he listened to the Bengals, Trevor. Little Bengals.
What was the Bangle? Did he say the? He didn't say the Bengals. Did he?
He says a deep dive into the 80s. You listen to a little Cheap Trick. What
are we talking about, Trevor? What kind of deep dive?
Yeah, we gotta hear about
throw some
80s,
tracks up
bro.
there, man. What did you do?
Rick says best music ever made was from. Now, see, again, I don't know nothing about 68 to 76, so because obviously I wasn't born yet. But 88 to 96, those 2 to 8. Okay.
You don't go back there. You don't go back to Pink Floyd. You don't.
No, I'm not a Pink Floyd guy.
Some great stuff back there. I don't know much about that genre of music, but I can tell you that when something comes on during that period, my wife probably knows 90% of those songs.
Really?
Oh yeah. We used to play this game where we would just turn on the radio and she would just she would just start singing the song. It didn't matter what song it was, any genre except country. So Trick Daddy was the 90s, right? I never listened to him at all.
Oh baby, I'm a thug because I'm a thug.
I didn't get into that. NWA,
of course. Uncle Luke.
Yeah, for sure.
2 Live Crew.
Well, if he's driving to Florida, you have to put on Uncle Luke. You have to.
Some Tool. Okay. Wow. Now see, I can get down with some Kid Rock. That's one thing I can do. I can get down with some Kid Rock.
Don't know much about him.
Yeah, I can get down with some Kid Rock. I can bang. I was banging out a little Sebastian Bach the other day, killing some Skid Row. Remember the Skid Row? Yeah, check that out.
Believe it or not, it's not something that I never got into. None of that stuff.
I go all over, man.
That's definitely all over. I mean, I went into the the Flock of Seagulls and Devo, and I went down that route. Some of that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because music is kind of like, it's not always what you're brought up on. It's what you gravitate towards too. So I was brought up on Motown, and I still love Motown. Like Motown's my thing. I can listen to Smokey and the Commodores all day long, but at the same time, I gravitated obviously because we're from the same kind of inner city era that we grew up with hip hop. I mean that's what we did. I mean we gravitated towards the hip hop. It was, you were one of two things. There was no there wasn't like, he's a country guy. No, it was, you were rap or you were rock. and that was it. That was it.
It was a
That's all
very
you had.
absolute equation. There was no middle ground there, and if you were rock, you were like Ozzy Osbourne. You were Black Sabbath. That's where you
Like
were.
hardcore.
Hardcore. You were over there. And on the other side, maybe you were Run DMC. Maybe. I mean, think about that. I mean, you're talking about 85, 86, 87, Run DMC. I mean, it was all Run DMC then. Because you remember from like 82 to 85, it was like that really weird type of electro stuff. It was like, it was Curtis Blow, and it was like Egyptian Lover, and it was the breakdance, and it was break-in. It was like at the beginning of hip-hop, and then it started with Boogie Down Productions with South Bronx, and then that whole stuff started. Then the Stetsasonic started, and then it all went to, Cool C, and then you had the Steady B, you had the Hilltop Hustlers from Philly, and it had like all these crazy phases. But it all started with the Breaking movie was the biggest thing. That's what blew the top off of everything, because before Breaking it was Planet Rock.
Planet Rock. And again, I will say this before we get out of here, for anybody who I highly recommend, there's a hip hop documentary, Hip Hop Evolution, on Netflix, 4-part series. You have to watch it.
Really?
And what it does is, it's great. It breaks down where hip hop resonated from, whether it be East Coast, West Coast. It's got everything. And it takes you interviews like deep down in what the hell's going on. Get off the YouTube page, man. I'm ready to get people paid and get people money, man. But listen, as always, so glad to be back and to be just talking on a local level, national level, talking music, just spitballing back and forth. Comments, as always, much appreciated. Get back to a little old school kind of vibe to where, listen, you can have the best graphics in the world, but if your content is not good and you don't have good conversation, and all it is just pictures, that's it. So when I get back to that, I'll do a little more podcasting than what we're used to. It may not be live all the time, but there'll be a lot of different stuff. But as always, man, for me, Mikey Googs. Maybe we get Coach Dave back next week.
Maybe.
Okay. Wait, she plugged for my boy Trevor. Check out this week's Upper Bowl podcast. Absolutely. Handed out awards last week. Trevor, so check that out for everybody listening. Upper Bowl podcast, man.
Check it out.
Trevor's the man. Great part of the Heat Ratio family. But as always, if you're not subscribing, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow all social platforms. And I still got 2 prize packs to give away. 2 Yingling prize packs to give away. Okay, we're up to 336 subscribers. Let's get to 500 so we can give out more of them. But as always, Tony Jigsaw Cotillo, Mikey Googs, Heat Ratio Sports. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next week.